Oh my gosh. Gotta make sure that people can hear me. Because, oh my gosh, last time the audio was atrocious. And as an audiophile, I am ashamed of myself. I'm ashamed of my toes too. Oh my gosh. Y'all shouldn't be looking at that. Don't look at my feet. If you want to see my feet, pay me. Pay me to look at my feet. Y'all are lucky that you even get to gaze upon this visage. Anyways, it is time for another exciting evening with Mr. Cunt, Emmanuel. And we were reading the Critique of Pure Reason, specifically the Critique of Pure Reason read by a catgirl in a condescending voice. I certainly hope that you felt condescended too. At least that is something that I am told, that I am condescending, that I believe that I am superior to others. I do not believe that I am superior to others. I'm just a cat who can't read good, who really wants to read good, but I can't read good. And I just try my best. So, welcome to another exciting evening of a catgirl reading Immanuel Kant's Critique of Pure Reason in a condescending voice to you, tube.com. Let's see. I believe that we left off that at the we had finished the second part of the introduction, where Kant made the claim that we are in possession of of certain kinds of a priori knowledge, even the common understanding as never without them. And so, moving on, the third part is philosophy requires a science that determines the possibility, the principles, and the range of all a priori knowledge. And let's see. Yes. We did read this last time because these unavoidable problems of pure reason are itself God, freedom, and immortality. And let's see, he wrote, we should not at once proceed to erect an edifice with knowledge which we possess without knowing whence it came. And that's something that I had underlined as important. So that's something I read last time. And so I don't know if I last time read of the distinction between analytic and synthetic judgments. That's section 4. So really, the one who should be condescended to is me. Condescend to me in the comments, please. I need it. I need your condescension as much as I condescend to you now. So, without further ado, Immanuel Kant's Critique of Pure Reason, Introduction, Section 4. Of the distinction between analytic and synthetic judgments. In all judgments in which there is a relation between subject and predicate is thought. I speak of affirmative judgments only, the subsequent application to negative ones being easily made. This relation is possible in two ways. And this is water, this is not vodka. all this heady BS, it's important to remember that you are a creature of flesh and you must be hydrated. Oh, this looks fancy. Creamy. In all judgments in which a relation between subject and predicate is thought, I speak of affirmative judgments only, the subsequent application to negative ones being easily made. This relation is possible in two ways. Either predicate B belongs to the subject A as something which is covertly contained in the concept A, or B lies outside the concept A, though connected with it. In the former case, I call the judgment analytic, and in the latter synthetic. Analytic judgments, affirmative ones, are therefore those in which the connection of the predicate with the subject is thought through identity, while those in which the connection is thought without identity are called what should be called synthetic. The former might be called elucidatory, while the latter expansive judgments, because in the former nothing is added to the predicate to the concept of the subject, and the concept is only analyzed and broken up into its constituent concepts, which had all along been thought in it, though confusedly, while the latter add to the concept the subject a predicate that had not been thought in it at all, and that could not be extracted from it by any analysis. If I say, for instance, all bodies are extended, my body is extended. Let's extend our bodies. That was a pop in my elbow. It sometimes does that. It's because I play guitar a lot. If I say, for instance, all bodies are extended, then this is an analytic judgment. I need not go beyond the concept, which I connect with the body, in order to find that extension is connected with it. To find that predicate, I only need to analyze the concept. That is, become conscious of the manifold that I always think in it. The judgment is therefore analytic. But if I say all bodies are heavy, my body is not heavy. Mr. Cunt, my body is not heavy. If I say all bodies are heavy, the predicate is something quite different from what I think in the mere concept of a body in general. Exactly. As an object of experience, my body is not heavy. The addition of such a predicate is therefore yields a synthetic judgment. Exactly, Mr. Cunt. Jesus. Empirical judgments, as such, are all synthetic. For it would be absurd to found an analytic judgment on experience, because in order to form such a judgment, I must not step outside my concept, and I need not appeal to the testimony of experience. The proposition that a body is extended holds a priori and is not empirical. For before I call in experience, I already have in the concept of a body all the conditions required for my judgment. I have only to extract from this concept, in accordance with the principle of contradiction, the required predicate, and thus become conscious. And thus I become conscious at the same time of the necessity of the judgment, and that is what experience could never teach me. On the other hand, although I do not include in the predicate of heaviness in the concept of the body in general, that concept nevertheless indicates an object of experience through one of its parts, so that I can add to that part other parts of the same experience. Besides, those which belonged to the concept of a body in general. I may first acquire knowledge of the concept of a body analytically through characteristics of extension, impenetrability, shape, etc., all of which are thought in this concept. Afterwards, I expand my knowledge, and looking back on the experience from which I abstracted my concept of a body, I find heaviness to always be connected with the aforementioned characteristic. Mr. Cunt. Mr. Cunt. I find heaviness to most of the time. You find heaviness to be connected with the aforementioned characteristics, and therefore I added as a predicate synthetically to that concept. That's right, synthetically, because you have to work really hard to call my body heavy. It is therefore experience on which the possibility of the synthesis of the predicate of heaviness with with the concept of the body is founded. For although neither of the two concepts is contained in the other, yet they belong to each other, though only contingently as parts of a whole, namely of an experience which is itself a synthetic combination of intuitions. In synthetic a priori judgments, however, this help is entirely lacking. If I am to go beyond the concept A and to know that another concept B is connected with it, then what is that on which I rely and which makes the synthesis possible, considering that I cannot have the advantage of looking about in the field of experience? Take the proposition, everything that happens has its cause. In the concept of something that happens, I do indeed think that an existence preceded by a time, etc., from analytic judgments can be obtained. But the concept of a cause is entirely outside the concept but the concept of a cause is entirely outside that concept and indicates something different from that which happens. Hence, it is in no way connected to that representation. Would you still have broken it if I hadn't said anything? How then can I predicate of that which happens something totally different from it? And know the concept of cause, though not contained in that concept of that which happens as belonging to it and belonging to it necessarily. What is here is that unknown equals X, and on which and the understanding relies when it believes it discovers outside the concept A predicate B foreign to the concept A, which it nevertheless believes to be connected with that concept. It cannot be experienced because the above principles, that all which happens has its cause, has added to the second representation to the first, not only with greater generality, but also with the character of necessity, and therefore entirely a priori and from mere concepts. Upon such synthetic, i.e. expansive principles, rests the whole final aim of our speculative a priori knowledge, for the analytic principles are no doubt very important and necessary, but only in order to arrive at the distinctiveness of concepts which is requisite for a safe and wide synthesis, as will lead to a generally new acquisition of knowledge. Philosophy is a lot of hair splitting. To quote the great philosopher Edie Brickell, it's a smile on a dog. Wait, writing on a cereal box? Is that what she said philosophy is? Philosophy is the talk on a cereal box. Religion is a smile on a dog. I think that's the way she put it. I don't know. I found that album at a DAV for 89 cents, and it was like, it spoke to me. The whole album spoke to me on a personal level. Yeah. My copy of this book is signed by Laura Jane Grace, by the way. I'm a nerd. Cause see, like, she was playing in Kansas City, and all of her merch that I had was all the way back in California, and I had this copy of this book with me because I was reading it at the time, and wow, yeah. So I just was just like, could you please sign this? Because I got a hoodie, and it felt weird to get merch of yours that I already had, so I got a hoodie, and it'd feel weird to you can't really sign a hoodie, so will you please sign this copy of this book because of the song title? And she totally did because she's really cool. So yeah, I'm that kind of nerd. Um, but I'm not telling you that as a condescension. I'm telling you that to be uh, relatable. Um, I'm bad at condescension. I am, but um, maybe if I drink more coffee with the whipped cream that looks fancy, maybe that will help me be more condescending. This has Kahlua creamer in it. It's non-alcoholic. Also, I sound like I have a problem, but I promise I don't. Immanuel Kant's Critique of Pure Reason, Section 5. In all theoretical sciences of reason, synthetic a priori judgments are contained as principles. All mathematical judgments are synthetic. This proposition, though incontestably certain, are very important in its consequences, seems to have hitherto escaped the observation of those who are engaged in the analysis of human reason. Indeed, it seems to be directly opposed to their conjectures, for it was found that all mathematical inferences proceeded according to the principles of contradiction, which is required by the nature of apodictic certainty. It was supposed it, it was supposed that the fundamental principles of mathematics are also known on the basis of the principles of contradiction. This, however, was a mistake, for although a synthetic proposition may be understood according to the principles of contradiction, this can only be this can only be if another synthetic proposition is presupposed from which it is de- deduced, but never by considering that proposition by itself. First, we ought to observe that mathematical propositions, properly so called, are always a priori judgments and never not empirical ones, because they possess necessity which cannot be derived from experience. It If people should object to this, I am quite willing to confine my statement to pure mathematics, the very concept of which implies that it does not contain empirical but pure a priori knowledge. At first sight, one might suppose, indeed, that the proposition 7 plus 5 equals 12 is a merely analytical one, but following by the principle of contradiction from the concept of a sum of 7 and 5. And wow, that's getting really hard to imagine because that's more fingers than I have. But if we take but if we look more closely at the concept of a sum of 7 and 5 contains nothing beyond the union of two numbers into one, whereby nothing is being thought as to what is this single number maybe which combines both. We by no means arrive at a concept of 12 by thinking that union of 7 and 5. We may analyze our concept of such a possible sum as long as we please. Still, we shall never discover it in it the concept of 12. We must go beyond these concepts and call the assistance of the intuition corresponding to one of the two. For instance, our 5 fingers, or as Segner does in his arithmetic, 5 points, and so gradually add to the concept of 7 the units of the 5 given in intuition. For starting with the number 7, calling in the aid of the fingers of my hand as intuition in order to form with the concept of 5, I gradually add to the number 7 the units which I previously took together to make up the number 5 by means of the image of my hand. Thus, I see the number 12 arise. That 5 should be added to the number 7. Wow, there is something over there that is so finding this to be so distasteful that it fell. And oh, it's some sheet music. Some sheet music fell. It's a sign. See, I mentioned the Oracle's vase earlier. The Matrix fans who are watching this, that they know what I'm talking about. Because I leaned into the mic earlier and I said a very specific line, and now it's broken. Hair splitting. That 5 should be added to 7. This I had no doubt already thought in the concept of a sum equal to 7 plus 5, but that this sum be equal to the number 12. An arithmetical proposition, I think that's how that word is pronounced, arithmetical? Okay, so arithmetic, arithmetical? An arithmetical proposition is therefore always synthetic, which is seen more easily still when we take larger numbers, where it is evident that, turn and twist our concepts as we may, we could never, by means of the mere analysis of concepts and without help of intuition, arrive at the sum, unless you're Matilda. Jesus, Immanuel Kant, read a book. Well, I mean, that was a book by Roald Dahl, though. Never mind, don't read books. Not even this one. Don't read books. Just watch The Matrix over and over again. As I look up at my art of Akuma Homura ganking Harry Potter as if she were Trinity ganking a Matrix, saying, dodge this. Oh my gosh, why am I like this? Nor is any principle of pure geometry analytic that the straight line between 2 points is the shortest is a synthetic proposition. For my concept of straight contains nothing about quantity, but only a quality. The concept of the shortest is therefore entirely added. Some joke about straight people in the short bus. And me getting canceled about being ableist years down the road for resurfaced bad jokes, cannot be extracted from the concept of a straight line by analysis whatsoever. The aid of intuition, therefore, must be called in by means of which alone the synthesis is possible. It is true that few propositions presupposed by geometricians is that geometricians are they even a thing anymore? It is true that a few propositions presupposed by geometricians are actually analytic and based on the principle of contradiction, but like the identical propositions, they serve only to form the chain of method that and serve not as principles. Such are the propositions A equals A and the whole is equal to itself and A plus B is greater than A, that is, the whole is greater than its parts. Huh. That is a weird way to phrase that. A plus B is greater than A. The whole is great. That that is a weird way to phrase that. A plus B is greater than A. That is, the whole is greater than its parts. That is a weird way to phrase that mathematically. And even these, though they are valid according to mere concepts, are admittedly in mathematics only because they can be exhibited in intuition. What often leads us to believe here that the predicate of apodictic judgments is contained in our very concept, and that the judgment is therefore analytic, is merely that the ambiguous character of the expression. We are told that we ought to add in thought a certain predicate to a given concept, and this necessity adheres to the very concepts. But the question is not what we ought to add to the given concept, but what we actually think in it, even if only confusedly. And then it becomes clear that the predicate does not indeed necessarily adhere to these concepts, not, however, as something thought in the concept itself, but by means of intuition that must be added to the concept. Oh my gosh. I have run these pages through. Why can I not just flip it now? Natural sciences, physics, contains synthetic a priori judgments as principles. I cite as examples only a few propositions, such as the proposition in all alterations of the material world, the quantity of matter remains unaltered, or that in all communication of motion, action and reaction must always be equal to each other. It is clear that both propositions are not only necessary, therefore a priori of a priori origin, but also that they are also synthetic. Okay, so the action and reaction thing, I'm pretty sure that might have been like shown to be slightly false. I'm not a physicist though, don't quote me on that. Cuz like there's like Newtonian physics and then there's like fucking there's like the Einstein stuff like with the theory of relativity, and then there's like quantum physics type stuff that like gets into like subatomic particles and stuff, um and like um Immanuel Kant would have been writing about the time of Newton, so this would have been like when Newtonian physics was the thing. So this is one of those times where just because you read it in a book with a dead white guy on it doesn't necessarily make it true. It was held true at the time because that's what was being observed. And I'm not even saying, here's my condescension coming out. I'm not even saying it's true or false. I'm applying Cartesian skepticism, so that I do not go into error. I'm saying I don't know. I'm saying I'm not a physicist. I'm saying go do your research. Anyways, I'm saying it is indeed a common fate of humanity. It is indeed a common fate of human reason, first of all, to finish its speculative edifice as soon as possible, and only afterwards to inquire whether the foundations be well laid. Then all sorts of excuses are made in order to assure us of its solidity, or preferably to reject altogether so late and so dangerous an inquiry. Anyways, there's your condescension for the evening. Meow. For the concept of matter, I do not think permanence, but only its presence in the space in which it occupies. That I therefore go beyond the concept of matter in order to add to it a priori in thought something I did not think in it before. The proposition is, therefore, that though therefore thought not analytically but synthetically, and yet a priori, and the same applies to the other propositions of the pure part of the natural science. Metaphysics, even if we look upon it as hitherto only a tentative science, which, because of the very nature of human reason, however, is indispensable to us, is meant to contain synthetic a priori knowledge. Its main concern is not at all merely to analyze concepts which we form a priori of things, and thus to elucidate them analytically, but to expand our knowledge a priori. This we can only do by means of principles which add to a given concept something which was not contained in it. Indeed, by means of such synthetic a priori judgments, we must probably go so far beyond a given concept that experience itself cannot follow us. For instance, in the proposition, the world must have a beginning, and others like it, thus, at least according to its purpose, metaphysics consists merely of synthetic a priori judgments. And I think that this is where I shall stop. So, I hope that you are having a lovely time as a cat girl, me, condescends to you with Immanuel Kant's critique of pure reason. Meow. I'm gonna drink some more coffee, because coffee is delicious and wonderful. Oh my gosh. It's got whipped cream in it, and it's got Kahlua creamer, it's got chocolate syrup in it. Y'all, if you don't take some time to chill a little bit, what are you even doing? I think it was in those Shishin Liu books. If you don't make time for civilization, civilization won't make time for you. I might be getting that quote wrong. And honestly, there's a lot of messed up stuff in those books. But there's also a lot of good stuff in those books. Those books are a mess. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't like them. So, have a good night, folks. Oh, dear. I almost got indecent.